Europe is battling the effects of scorching weather. June has been the hottest month on record, and experts estimate this year temperatures could of course exceed Europe's current record of 48.8 degrees Celsius that Sicily had recorded back in August 2021. The last year, heat waves had resulted in over 61,000 heat-related fatalities across 35 European nations, and it triggered devastating wildfires across several countries on the continent. Now, globally, the last 8 years have been the warmest on record, and 2022 has been the 5th warmest year ever. In this context, Europe is emerging as a major climate change hotspot, given that warming since pre-industrial levels has been almost about 1 centigrade or higher than the corresponding global increase, and is higher than any other continent. And with blistering summers, Europe's wildfires are already breaking records, with nearly about 660,000 hectares of land having been ravaged since January. The EU's satellite monitoring service has recorded that Austria, Croatia, France, Greece, Italy, Portugal and Spain are the worst affected nations due to the wildfires. Let's in fact start with what is unfolding in Greece. Now, fires are blazing on several Greek islands, leading to mass evacuations. On roads, flames are burning on nearly about 10 to 20% of the island, and around 20,000 people have been evacuated, including tourists. Now, one of the worst affected nations is, of course, Italy. Wildfires are burning in several areas on the island of Sicily. The city's airport has reopened after a brief closure earlier in the week, but other public transport services such as buses and trains continue to remain disrupted. Air quality in the affected areas remain poor, and power and water supply has been interrupted to several communities. And wildfires in Croatia do not seem to be abating anytime soon. A bushfire near the coastal town of Šibenik spread pretty quickly. Water-dropping planes and firefighters have been tackling the blaze, which officials say is presently under control, but a risk of flare-up is possible if the wind picks up again. Another worst affected region due to the rising temperatures and wildfires is Spain. A wildfire started on the 15th of July on the island of La Palma, and it led to the evacuation of more than 4,000 people. An estimated 2,900 hectares of land has also been burnt down on the island. Spain, interestingly, has experienced its hottest spring on record this year. In some regions, the temperatures have exceeded 40 degrees Celsius, and they've also reached a maximum of 43 degrees Celsius. And lastly, in Portugal, over 500 firefighters have been battling a blaze near Portugal's capital, Lisbon. The flames forced at least about 90 people from their homes and the evacuation of 800 farm animals. The flames have been surrounding the southern coastal town of Cascais, and the fire was brought under control, but firefighters still remain vigilant as strong winds could cause it to reignite. There are also fears that it may spread further throughout the neighboring regions. Now, to give us more insights in terms of why it is that Europe is one of the worst affected continents due to global warming, we're being joined by Mr. Chandrabhushan, who is the CEO of iForest, is joining us live from New Delhi on this broadcast. Now, Mr. Bhushan, it's an important phenomena that has been discussed for a fair bit now. Global warming is real. And what is interesting is that the European continent seems to be the worst affected because of global warming that is happening around the world. Can you explain as to why that is?
I think you have just hit the right point. The general narrative has been that heat wave is going to hit countries that are near to equator. Asian and African countries are going to be really hit by heat wave. But the fact is that no one is spared now. Western media is very good at highlighting the kind of heat wave that has hit Pakistan, India, and parts of Africa. But the fact is that Western Europe, Mediterranean countries are actually worst affected. Canada is badly affected. US is badly affected. July was the hottest month on record. Now, the forest fire and the heat wave in the Western Hemisphere very clearly tell us that no one will be spared as far as the impact of global warming is concerned. So if colder countries believe that they are not going to get affected by heat wave, unfortunately they are really wrong on this. They will be more affected simply because they do not have experience of high temperature. We have. We live next to equator. We have experience of handling high heat and high humidity, whereas colder countries don't have that experience. So as far as impact on human being is concerned, as far as impact on ecology is concerned, they are likely to be much worse off than we
Absolutely.
are. But that doesn't mean that we are not going to get affected. Let me stress that point. But the fact that they are also getting affected, it should be recognized very quickly.
Absolutely, indeed. And Mr. Bhushan, one of the big challenges is getting a political consensus, getting all nations on board to pull in the right direction, to bring about policies to combat climate change. And what we've noticed is that these developed, advanced nations have a bigger carbon footprint. Do you think because now they're getting so badly affected because of climate change, they'd be more willing to negotiate with the other nations to try and come about with the policies that can be implemented, not just by the Western world, but also by the developing world?
I hope so. The signs are, we are still fighting. There's a fight. There's still a fight going between developed and developing countries. I hope so that these experiences will push developed countries to do more. So far, they have actually misappropriated the carbon space. Their historical emission is very high. Their per capita emission is very high. Their current emission is very high. And the way they are planning the phase down of fossil fuel, their future emission is also going to be very high.
Absolutely.
Most countries, developed countries, have said that they want to phase out fossil fuel by 2050, become net zero by 2050. So from now till 2050, they are going to emit a lot. In fact, they're going to emit a lot compared to countries like India.
Absolutely.
So I hope that they understand their responsibility and they can be more proactive.
Absolutely indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bhushan, for joining us and getting us all those details there.
Thank you.